The Smiling Man. In the early 2000s, a man in his 20s decided to take a late-night walk through his neighborhood. He enjoyed the quiet of the streets, but on this particular night, he felt an unusual unease in the air. As he walked, he noticed a figure approaching him from the other side of the street. It was a man dressed in a suit, who seemed out of place in the dimly lit area. What struck him was the man's wide, unsettling smile that never seemed to fade. As the two drew closer, the man began to dance awkwardly, all while maintaining that same eerie grin. The young man felt a chill run down his spine and quickened his pace, hoping to pass by without interaction. But the smiling man mirrored his speed, keeping just a few steps behind. Confused and frightened, he turned to confront the stranger. "What do you want?" he asked, trying to sound brave. The man simply tilted his head and replied in a sing-song voice, "I just want to be friends." His smile widened impossibly, revealing a set of teeth that looked too sharp, too perfect. Panicking, the young man turned to run. The smiling man gave chase, his laughter echoing through the empty streets. He sprinted towards home, heart racing, but every time he glanced back, the man was still there, grinning and dancing, seemingly unfazed. Finally, the young man reached his front door and fumbled with the keys, desperately trying to get inside. He could hear the footsteps getting closer, the laughter growing louder. Just as he unlocked the door and slammed it shut, he glanced out the window. The smiling man stood on the sidewalk, still grinning, his eyes fixed on the house, but instead of leaving, he simply waved, his smile never wavering. That night, the young man locked all the doors and windows, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. He didn't sleep well, haunted by the image of the smiling man. Days passed, but he couldn't shake the memory each night. He felt a growing paranoia, convinced that the man would return. And then one evening, he heard a knock at the door. Gathering his courage, he looked through the peephole. To his horror, the smiling man stood there, still dressed in that same suit, still grinning. This time, he didn't run. Instead, he stayed quiet, heart pounding, praying the man would leave. After a few moments, the knocking stopped, but the silence felt worse. He backed away from the door, breathing heavily. Later that night, he heard a soft scratching sound coming from his window. Gathering his nerves, he peeked outside, but there was nothing there, only darkness. The next morning, he noticed something strange. His reflection in the mirror looked off. His own smile seemed too wide, too unnatural. Over the following weeks, he became increasingly paranoid, unable to escape the feeling that he was being watched. Friends started to notice changes in him, his laughter turning to nervous giggles. One night, he finally snapped and decided to confront the fear. He went back to the place where he first saw the man, hoping to end the nightmare. But as he stood alone in the dark street, he suddenly heard that familiar laughter behind him. He turned to find the smiling man standing there, closer than ever, that same grin plastered across his face. "I've been waiting for you," he said softly, his eyes gleaming in the moonlight that was the last anyone saw of him. To this day, the story circulates in the neighborhood, a reminder of the night the smiling man claimed another victim, leaving behind only whispers of his chilling laughter. Are you a fan of all things eerie and exciting? Subscribe to Nick's Frightful 5. Each episode promises chills and thrills, exploring spine-tingling tales, horror film insights, and ghostly legends. Dive into the darkness with fellow enthusiasts, sharing your favorite frights and perhaps even uncovering some hidden gems. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us and let your spooky journey begin.